Well, who would have thought that Terre Haute, Indiana would be the center of the political universe these days? It is weird, it is bizarre, and it is odd, ladies and gentlemen, to say the least. To get you all up to speed on all this, joining us on the news line is Alexandra Wilson. Alexandra Wilson is a young lady who is running for the Senate district in Senate District 38, which is over in the Terre Haute area. Greg Good, who's a good friend, we all known him personally for years, is the incumbent. She's running along with a woman named Brenda Wilson. Well, Alexandra has been in the middle of a bunch of controversy. She was trying to throw it off the ballot. She had a past when she was a young person, made a mistake. They tried to get off the ballot for that. Then at the White House, apparently now, we found out before the withdrawal deadline, reached out to her to try to get her to drop off the ballot and offer her a carrot and a job. And so to explain all this is joining us on the news line is Alexandra Wilson herself. So Alexandra, thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. You taking a few minutes to talk to us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Tell us your story. Describe. Did I get the situation correct, or feel free to fill in the gaps or summarize, or just talk to our audience if you could.
Yeah, you summarized it fairly well. I, decided to join the race for legitimate reasons and concerns for my district. And within the next week of me choosing to do so, I've received multiple phone calls, text messages from people that represent the White House, state government, and it's been absolutely insane, to be honest with you.
Okay, so let's start. Okay, why did you decide to run? Let's start with that point.
I decided to run due to some local issues that are going on here. I know there's been some massive coverage on the school corporation and the plan to build a mega school on the east side in Vigo County. There was a bill that was passed that would allot county funds going to the school corporation. They came out with a minimum starting out at $222 million plan. That doesn't include buying the land, doesn't include remodeling other schools in the process. It's an astronomical dollar amount. And I believe the school corporation only has a certain amount to put towards this. And that means that the county would make up the difference. And that means more taxes for everyone within Vigo County.
So in a nutshell, you're just basically ready. Hey, there's some issues going on in your community. You didn't think they were right. You want to do something about it.
Yes. And then, the longer that I've been involved in this, I have been able, luckily, to be involved in a few events and spoken directly to voters in the district, and they have concerns. And one of the issues going on right now as well is a plan for CO2 dumping in the Northwest County. And those people are just not being listened to.
Now, when did you get the first phone call about running? Because I know it's you, I know it's Greg Good, and also Brenda Wilson.
Yes. The first phone call from
people saying, "Hey, not necessarily people asking you why you're running, but are you sure you want to run? Maybe you should go do something else."
So the first phone call I got was on February 8th, and it was a voicemail I didn't respond to. And then I got another call after that. And that's the thing that's been a little concerning to me is, I received all these phone calls with the agenda of getting me off the ballot. Not a single person really listened to why I wanted to be involved and took it seriously. As everyone knows, the mass concern was the redistricting issue. And then, my side of that wasn't even listened to. They picked their candidate. They wanted two on the ballot, and that was how they wanted it to be. And they were going to do what they had to do for it to be that way.
We're talking to Alexandra Wilson. She is a candidate in Senate District 38, that is in the Terre Haute, Vigo County, Clay County area in southwestern Indiana. It's more like the southwest central part of Indiana. She's on the ballot. She's gone through a lot lately. She was trying to kick off the ballot because of a past record. That failed, and now we're finding out that she was actually approached by the White House, like Trump people in the White House, the Deputy Chief of Staff, Director of Political Affairs, to try to convince her to get off the ballot, and actually went so far as to offer her a job or a position. Now, Alexandra, let me ask you, when you started getting calls from the White House, did you think, like, what the heck did I get myself into?
No, 100%. I told people several times that my husband basically said, this is going to be a lot. It was more than I thought that it was going to be. And he gets to say, I told you so now. I never in a million years thought I would have received phone calls from the White House over deciding to join this race.
Now, how did the White House approach you?
I received phone calls. And then, when I didn't respond to the phone calls, I'd receive text messages. I've had several voicemails. Those have been shared as well.
Tell us about those voicemails. When you got them, like, okay, is this real? I know it's early in the year. Like, you ask yourself, is this real, or is somebody trying to put me on?
Uh, the first phone call I got on the 8th, I looked up that person. I saw that they were involved in the political affairs office within the White House. But I, to be honest with you, I was in Sam's Club. I got the call. I got the voicemail. I didn't take it seriously. Well, then the second one came through the very next day, and that was from Matt Brasso, and he said his title. And so I took it seriously because at that point there was more than one person that reached out, and it was a consistent attempt to contact me.
Now, you said earlier that it wasn't just the White House in Washington, D.C. that they tried to get a hold of you. It was also folks from the state of Indiana. Tell us about that part.
That's correct. I had the lieutenant governor reach out. Micah Beckwith tried to contact me, left me a voicemail. I had someone with the Club for Growth PAC reach out after the phone call with Matt Brasso that offered me possibly a state admin and then trying to come up with other ideas. I received a text message from him after that the governor's office would be reaching out to me because I could possibly get on a boards and commissions position. I then received a text message from Joshua Kelly, who I believe is on the governor's.
Josh Kelly's the governor's chief of staff.
Yes, the chief of staff. He reached out and asked me to contact him. I would assume about the boards and commission's position. I didn't reach back out to him because that wasn't something I was interested in. I had been adamant on the calls. I was curious as to what they had to offer, just like anybody else would be, but it had to be something that would trump my concern for my district and why I wanted to join here.
And use the term Trump, so to speak.
Yes.
just to throw that out there. When you got a call from Josh Kelly, the governor's chief of staff, what went through your mind?
They were taking it seriously, and their drive to get me off the ballot was it was fascinating to see. But it was not something I was interested in.
We're talking to Alexandra Wilson. She is a candidate, Republican candidate for the Indiana State Senate, Senate District 38. That is Terre Haute, Vigo County, Clay County, southwestern, South Central Indiana. She's in the middle of a controversy because she's on the ballot and she's running, but folks have been trying to get her off the ballot, either by hook, by offering something, or by crook. Now, Alexandra, let's change gears just a little bit because I want to come back to this conversation. When you found out your candidacy was being challenged, tell us what went through your mind with that.
I honestly didn't know exactly, what that would entail. I definitely didn't know it opened the can of worms in which it did, as far as the back and forth between the commission and legal filings with the court and multiple hearings. I thought that it was nonsense. I've never been convicted of a felony. I never pled to a felony conviction. That was never something that happened. I had a misdemeanor on my record from when I was 19. I was a kid. And to take it to the level that it was taken to, I was disappointed. I was surprised. And quite frankly, I was rather annoyed with it. But I was going to continue and follow the steps and do what I needed to do because I wasn't, James Blair brought it up on a phone call, my record. It was out there. It was known. And I was waiting on the next, shoe to fall, so to speak. And that was the challenge.
Okay. Tell us about that, your conversation with James Blair, who worked for the White House at the time. And did he say, hey, if you run, this is going to come out, or you have a pass. Tell us about tell us about that conversation to the best of your ability.
Yeah, I mean, my record was brought up, and they knew about it when I had my conversation with Matt Brasso. I know that they did. He admitted on that phone call they did a deep dive on me. And then, so did James Blair. They did a dive on me. This is all that they could find, because that's all there was to be found. And it got brought, not so much that it would be from the top down used against me, but that it could be brought up in either Greg Good or Brenda Wilson's campaigning. They could put it out there for everyone to know and everyone to see, and that would probably be the route that they would take.
But it turns out it was actually Jim Bopp who did it.
Yes. And then I saw in that report today that he had, in his interview, he had stated it came from the state Republican Party, who told him to file the challenge.
Now, once that challenge was filed, what went through your mind?
Here we go. Luckily I got connected with Samantha DeWester. I have had a great attorney on my side. She's had my back. I don't know what I would have done without her. I had full intention of going to the committee and standing up for myself by myself, but I was very glad that she stepped in and I had her representation up there.
Now, obviously, the court basically ruled in your favor, basically saying, no, this isn't our problem. You got to go back to the election board. The election board split 2-2. So it seemed like we went the long way around to end up exactly where we started at.
Yes.
Which still kind of surprises me. So once the election board came back and said, "Hey, you're on the ballot, but you're not disqualified," what did that tell you?
That there was some common sense within the commission. I've never been convicted of a felony. I never pled to a felony conviction, and the statute in itself, to which Bopp was running off of, there are certain steps, there's stepping stones within that statute that you have to meet for, A, B, C, D to apply. And it seemed to me, someone that does not have a law degree, that Bopp was trying to cherry pick what he could out of those statutes and that statute in itself to make this narrative fit for what he was trying to achieve. You can't do that. There's lines that you follow, there's steps that you take in that statute in itself. He did not meet what was needed for me to be disqualified. And that was a felony conviction. I've never had one.
Alexandra Wilson, our guest on the program today, she's a Republican candidate for the Indiana State Senate in Senate District 38. That is Terre Haute, where Greg Good is the incumbent and Brenda Wilson is a challenger. Now, Alexandra, a lot of folks are saying that because your last name is Wilson and Brenda Wilson's last name is Wilson, that you were a plant, that this was a dirty trick, that you were just you're put up to be put on the ballot to split the vote so that Greg Good would win. How do you respond to that? And remember, this will be broadcast live, so you can't use colorful language like Sam DeWester does.
I think it's totally ridiculous. I've had multiple people bring up to me that they've seen that come out, that, Bopp has expressed that in media reports, and they feel insulted. Voters feel insulted. It's insinuating that they are not smart enough to differentiate between two separate people. And there's a vast difference between Brenda Wilson and myself. And as voters, it is up to them to, you would expect, an educated vote. That's the whole point of campaigning, is for candidates to get out there. They get their standpoint out. They, what they're willing to do, what they stand for. And you get to know the candidate to where you go out and you have an educated vote. To go off of names alone and say, well, they're going to be confused. It's dumb. It's stupid. I would have ran whether my name was still Anderson, because of my issues and how I feel about what is going on within my district. The fact that I have the same last name as Brenda Wilson is irrelevant to me. It's not the reason why I chose to get involved by any means at all. And to continue to give that narrative and create an issue over something that's not an issue, shouldn't be an issue. There's no law, there's no statute that two people with the same last name can't be on a ballot. If there was, I wouldn't have been on it in the first place.
Alexandra, let me ask you this. And this may sound like an odd question. How does it feel to be a candidate for public office? You're running this in a district, because you got your local issues that you're concerned about. That the White House and the President of the United States, you showed up on Donald Trump's radar screen.
It was unexpected. As you've seen, there's been multiple reports, and the attention that this race is getting, this state race, all surrounded around the redistricting issue, I think has been more and even more unexpected than what anyone could have thought would happen. The amount of money that's been going into the endorsed candidates in these campaigns, it's unheard of, and I think it's very unexpected.
So how's reaction been from the folks in Senate District 38? What has been their reaction to you? What's been their reaction to Donald Trump? What are they telling you?
From the people that I've spoken to, it's more so of majority of the response that I have gotten is apologies for what they've been putting me through and what I've had to deal with. There's been, praises of my integrity over the fact that I have not done any return on, the mudslinging and the name smearing. That's not something I'm interested in. I'm here for the people of the district. I don't think, that side of politics people are tired of and they don't want to see. And I have no interest in involving myself in that. But yeah, majority of it is apology and shock for what's been going on. And as it continues to develop, and it seems like Jim Bopp continues to beat a dead horse and he's not winning in this fight, and he keeps bouncing it back and forth and trying to make it fit into the box that he's trying to make it fit into to achieve what he's after, it's been crazy. They're starting to wonder why this is continuing. And then you question the amount of money that's spent on it. The funding's coming from somewhere for him to continue to fight a non-existent fight.
Alexandra, let me ask you this. Our guest on the program today is Alexandra Wilson. She is the Republican candidate, or one of the Republican candidates in Senate District 38, as the primary is just literally about 3 weeks away and some change as we record this conversation. Alexandra, let me ask you this. When you found out basically, or you believe that this came from the Indiana Republican Party to do everything they could to keep you off the ballot, what does that tell you about the Republican Party these days?
To be honest with you, I've not thought that much into it and directed it at the party specifically. I know that there's been Jim Bopp's made comments about Democrats, and the Democratic Party has been doing these dirty tricks for years, and I'm the only one doing a dirty trick on the last name standpoint. And it's quite clear that there's manipulation of the system for the Republican Party to get the outcome that they want, to dictate who voters get to vote for. You try to get a person off the ballot before they even get elected or even get a chance to get out and campaign, because you want certain choices, and that's two candidates specifically. I don't think it's right. I don't think that they should be involved in that way.
Does this change your opinion about the Republican Party, or do you still consider yourself a Republican?
I wouldn't take it. I don't think that this is the Republican Party as a whole. I don't. It doesn't change how I feel about it. I think it's a few misguided and some poor decision making. Everybody has it. I have a record from when I was 19. We're all human. We make poor decisions from time to time, and I think that this is one of those.
How's this been on your family?
It's been stressful. My husband, who's very, obviously defensive of me. He's a great man. He's worried about me. I'm 8.5 months pregnant. I was 7 months pregnant when all this started, and it was a lot of unnecessary stress that came in. And I've had quite a few family members, obviously, that don't take too kindly to me being called a convicted felon when I'm not a convicted felon.
Um, this is gonna sound like a weird question. Um, which do you think would be less painful, this experience or childbirth?
You know, I would say childbirth. I've been through quite a bit in my short.
I'm just joking with you, but
Yeah, but
I had to ask when I saw you pregnant. Like, okay, like that baby has got to be going through a whole bunch of stress right now because the mom's going through a bunch of stress.
oh, she when we go to those hearings and I get called a convicted felon when I've not been, she starts rolling around in there. I'd imagine she's like, "Mom, your heart rate."
So as we get ready to wind up our conversation here with Alexandra Wilson, Republican candidate for Senate District 38. Alexandra, obviously, you got a couple weeks to go before you give birth. Are you taking it easy? Are you just doing more Zoom events, or how do you run with your pregnancy, and also all the mental health stuff you just went through, and the fact that you were on, Donald Trump's radar screen?
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking it day by day, and I luckily this is something that I feel as though I've been handling it quite well for what I've been going through, and it's I'm taking it day by day and waiting for the next thing to be thrown at the wall and hoping that it sticks. Just so you know, Abdul, I just received a text message from Samantha that Bop did file another motion with the court today.
Well, you realize that the primary is they can't throw you off the ballot. It's too late.
He's going to keep trying. He in that order that he filed today, it states that he wants a judge to overrule the decision of the committee and remove me from the ballot himself. And that in itself is crazy to me. He's not thinking about the voters. He's not thinking about the other candidates that are on the ballot. What was expected was to, now that I was on the ballot and absentee ballots went out, early voting started, it's the expectation that those ballots and the folks that have gone out to vote, and there was a decent amount of number that has gone to the early voting locations and voted so far already. He's expecting those ballots to be considered spoiled and asking all these voters that have mailed in and gone in to go in and re-vote. It's not fair to the voters. It's not fair to the other candidates that are on the ballot. And I apologize to them for the mess that this has created. I know that it's not my fault personally, but I do feel horrible. And there should be concern for that. The fact that someone is expecting for this to happen and thinking that that's okay to do.
Alexander, let me ask you this: if you had, I think it's interesting. Like I said, you're a local person, mom, wife, Senate 38 district resident. You got some issues in your district, going about minding your own business. Could you ever imagine that this could have possibly have happened to you? And in a weird way, this has done. Someone who's covered politics for 30 years, this has done wonders for your name ID, by the way.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing I don't think it Bop, I don't know if he's thought of, is I've gotten a lot of free publicity in this. And for him to be on Brenda Wilson's side and defending her and wanting to get her name out there, he's done the opposite. I've had free campaigning, free publicity, which I'm grateful for, because as everyone heard or will hear on the James Blair phone call, was these people have this much money going towards their campaign. Can you match that? No, there was no way that I could. I mean, I wasn't getting endorsements alone right out the gate because of this challenge and everyone hearing that I'm a convicted felon. Who wants to endorse that candidate? Nobody, whether it's true or false. It doesn't look good.
Go ahead.
So,
let me ask you, Alex. We got about 3 minutes left before we wrap up our conversation here today. You said you've been getting a lot of support, and before I know we were talking earlier when we set up this interview. You said you were getting calls from people from outside of Indiana.
Yes. Yeah, I just got a message today from someone from Iowa that saw the story and wanted to donate to my campaigning fund, and is very glad that I'm continuing with this. I've had calls from my family, I've had calls from friends, and even reporters that I've spoken to that say, I can't believe you continued with this. Any other person would have folded. And luckily, I don't know how to say that. I mean, luckily they chose me to do this too, because any other person would have been bullied out. Any other person would have had no choice but to throw in their cards and give it up and hang up the towel. But I'm not one to do that. I'm not one to take I don't like the intimidation. I don't like the bullying. I don't like what they tried to do. And I'll do what I can to fight that, because to me, it's about what is the difference between right from wrong. And I wholeheartedly feel that what they have chose to put me through over these since February 5th, we're going in 2 months on this, is just completely wrong.
Final question for you. Once your daughter's born, obviously she's kind of going through this with you, even though maybe not consciously like the way we adults would. But what will you tell the story to your daughter to sort of give her hope when things get rough? Don't give up, fight, stand your ground, believe what you believe in.
Oh, 100%. That's what one of my family members said. At least even if I don't make it through the primary, I can tell my daughter I ran for state senate one day. But it's lessons learned. It's more knowledge, and it's quite an experience that I would gladly share with her and instill in her that I hope that if she were, God forbid, to ever go through something like I've been through, that she's in the same boat that I am, and she stands up for herself and she stands up for others. It's a big, big lesson that I would like to teach her. And that's one good thing that came out of this, is something that I can instill in my daughter on how her character should be.
Got any message for the folks in Washington, D.C., the president, vice president, those folks, because we know they'll be listening?
I've had multiple people ask me, how I feel about President Trump and, what he could think of all this. And I've said before, I don't think that he knows from A to Z what has happened and what I've been through. And I hope that maybe he takes the time to get to look into this and get to know me. They should have gotten to know me before making the phone calls and before putting me through what they did. I don't think that they would have made the choice that they did and who they chose to endorse. And I hope one day that I'll have their support.
All right. Well, our guest on the program today has been Alexandra Wilson. She's a Republican candidate in Senate District 38. You can find out all about her story on my website, indypolitics.org, about the White House, about people trying to get off the ballot. So, Alexandra, thank you very much for being with us. Nothing but the best of luck with your upcoming nuptials, and hopefully next time I'm in the area we can meet and chat real soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.